Finally, it's time to get story-ended. She's the mother of 8, soon to be 9, a Fox News contributor, and the wife of a certain U.S. congressman from Wisconsin. Despite all of that, she's found time to write a new picture book for kids called Paloma Wants to be Lady Freedom. She's here to tell us about the book and much more. Please welcome back to the program, Rachel Campos-Duffy. Rachel, tell me, where did this concept originate for this book, Paloma Wants to be Lady Freedom?
So it started when we came to the Capitol for the first time as a family after my husband was elected. Sean had never been to the Capitol before. I'd never been to the Capitol before. And so we brought the kids. They'd never been. And one of my kids was 4 years old at the time, Paloma. She fell in love with the building. It is magnificent. It's gorgeous. And she noticed something that I hadn't noticed, which was that there's this gorgeous statue at the top of it. And she wanted to know all about it. And I, as her mom, tried to figure out what it was. And I learned about it and taught her about it. And she said she wanted to be her. And the reason I know she was so serious about it is she had all these great questions. She wanted to know if she did it, when she grew up, if she became Lady Freedom, could she come down? Would the sword be too heavy? Could her siblings come up and visit her? So this idea started to, formulate for me because I thought she wants to be Lady Freedom, but all of us who are, whether we're protecting life or religious liberty or American capitalism, we are all protecting freedom. We all want to be Lady Freedoms. And so that's sort of the idea of it. I also lost Paloma once in Disney World, which was the worst moment of my life. And so you and I actually had a little conversation about this where you said, you need to find something. And I said, losing her in the Capitol. And you said, that's it. And so that's where this idea that she gets lost in the Capitol. And while she's lost, she discovers why her father, who's an immigrant and brought her there to celebrate being an American, wanted her to come. And she discovers why it's so important to be an American, why she's so lucky to be an American, and also a little bit about American history, which kids don't get enough of these days.
Yeah, and then there's a beautiful, tragic moment where she's deported at the end of the book. But we won't. No, I'm kidding.
That does not
totally
happen.
kidding. No, but it is significant that the family it's an immigrant family. Her father's a naturalized citizen who's very proud of being an American.
Yes, absolutely.
So tell me, what was the idea behind? I mean, that's intentional. This could have been the Duffy family with Paloma.
Right, we could have just gone to the Capitol.
Why did you decide to create this fictional family and an immigrant family at that?
So my mother, around the same age that I was, when I was this little girl's age, my mother became a U.S. citizen as well. And so we hear so much about immigration in the news and even in children's literature. If you go, there's a lot of stories, especially for young readers, about these sad, tragic stories of people being deported. I think we're forgetting to tell our kids, the story of legal immigration, which is a beautiful story. I mean, the most patriotic person I know is my mother, and I think it's because she went through that process. So I wanted to tell the story of a legal immigrant going through that process and the kind of pride and love of country that comes through that. But also, there's so much emphasis these days, and you know it because you love children's literature as well. There's this overemphasis, almost obsession with diversity, which is, of course, what makes us different. I wanted to talk about what unites us as Americans, especially now when everyone's complaining about how polemic and divisive everything is. What are the values that unite us? Love of freedom, the pursuit of the American dream, our American history, all of that is in that book. And that's what I hope it unleashes everybody's inner patriot, especially kids who aren't getting enough of that.
And why was the Lady Freedom theme so important to you? I mean, it's one thing for your daughter to say, oh, look, who's that? What's that statue? But why did it take on such significance for you to want to commemorate it in a book? Capture it.
I actually thought about it. I mean, this is our founders who, the Abraham Lincoln Commission. This is a gorgeous statue. If you haven't seen it, you really should Google it. It is the most gorgeous. You can see it up close. You can see it at the visitor center. It's such a beautiful statue. But just think, at the highest point in our nation's capital, they put a woman. Our founders put a woman, symbolizing, this protection of our liberty. She's fighting for it. She's defending. In fact, she faces east because she is watching England. She's so vigilant of our freedom, so protective of it. And I think in this moment, I do think we're in an existential battle politically as well, where, a lot of the things that we thought our country stood for, again, religious liberty, life, free enterprise, these things are all under attack. And I think it's a wonderful time for us to talk about values that we've always had that are somehow getting lost.
Yeah. What do you want families, particularly I imagine young girls, to take away from this book?
Love of America. I mean, honestly, just love of America. It seems like, whether it's Colin Kaepernick and so many other things that are happening in our culture where, presidential candidates who are constantly, complaining about America. America doesn't live up to this. America doesn't live up to that. They always seem so disappointed in us as Americans. And for me, I'm a military brat. I grew up with a different idea about what America is, and I wanted to share that. And I actually, I work on the Fox News Network. I travel around the country giving speeches, and I believe that most people love this country. There's a reason why there aren't, 800,000 young DACA kids trying to get into Caracas, or or into Mexico City. I mean, there's a reason why people risk their lives, do all kinds of stuff, wait in line for 15, 20 years to become Americans. There's something about this.
Well, we had your husband, Sean Duffy, Congressman Sean Duffy, on last week talking about his retirement from Congress. Do you really want him underfoot every day of the week? I want the exclusive on this.
Well, here's the exclusive. I'm about to have a baby in about a month. I'm nesting. He's going to be home more, and he's going to wish he was back in Congress because I have a long list of stuff that I want him to do. So yes, no, we miss each other. People don't get
it's
that
hard.
It's a hard life. There's 2 full-time schedulers to manage one congressman's work schedule and life. And so, I'm proud of the 8.5 years that he served. I think it's the greatest honor that our family ever had. My little kids, when they see the screen, the TV screen, and see a picture of the Capitol when the news is on, they say that's Daddy's office. And that's an amazing opportunity and honor that our family has had. But I also believe in citizen legislators. I think it's time for, we did our time to say we did our time like we were in jail. We weren't in jail, but we served as a family because there's a lot of sacrifice for everybody involved. But we could start to see that there are just too many things that we were missing family-wise.
Whether it's the military, whether it's serving in the Congress, I think it's a time of service, not a lifetime appointment or tenure. This is a good and healthy thing, I think, that he's doing. I know it's hard, too.
It is. It's hard, but I agree. I think it's healthy for our democracy.
Right.
New ideas, fresh ideas. Also,
New blood.
he's young. He could go and he could come back, at some future point if he felt like it. But, he might really like, being a civilian.
So handyman and plumbing is in his future.
If he gets tired of doing chores for me, he'll probably run for office again.
Okay. I have to ask you a question. I ask these of every author who comes on the program.
All right.
Your favorite children's book and why?
So it's not like super young, but it is young readers, children's literature. I love Nancy Drew. I grew up on Nancy Drew. I think Nancy Drew, for girls in particular, was the ultimate role model. I wanted to be just like her. I loved how brave she was. I loved how feminine she remained. I loved that she had a convertible. My first car was a convertible. I'm absolutely convinced it's because of Nancy Drew. I
was a Hardy Boys Encyclopedia Brown reader.
Okay.
And I never cracked open a Nancy Drew. I would see her on the cover and go, I'll get another Hardy Boys.
I was not a big
Hardy Boys.
Hardy
The Hardy Boys,
no.
you see?
So there is something about that.
Yes.
I think Nancy Drew was the ultimate. And by the way, if you read it to your kids nowadays, it's really fun because they'll be like, well, why can't she call someone from the basement if she's trapped? I'm like, there were no cell phones back then. They don't understand any of it. Yeah, no reception. There were no phones even.
Right.
So, it's a fun thing to read, and they get an idea of what life was like. And courtship, remember the courtship between her and Ned. Lots of fun stuff.
Wow. Least favorite children's book and why?
I hate any of those like Barbie books, and my kids love them, but they always seem to have no storyline. They're just kind of dumb. And so, I hate those kind of books.
The story that helped you find your path, and what was it? What was the lesson you gleaned from it?
A children's book?
Well, it can be an adult one.
I read The Alchemist a long time ago, and it was sort of like this this story of finding out what your passion is, and I really enjoyed that book, and I felt like at that time in my life I needed that kind of direction. By the way, the other favorite book was not mine, but all my kids. Little Red Barn.
Oh, the Little Red Barn.
We probably buy 2 Little Red Barn books a year because they get so used up in our house and touched and broken and.
Wow,
maybe it's a Wisconsin thing.
Yeah, that's a love book. I don't know the Little Red Barn.
You don't know?
No, this missed me totally.
Okay, all right.
Treasure Island, Huck Finn.
I love Treasure Island. I just read that this summer with the kids.
It's such a great book.
Yeah.
Where do you write and why?
At night, when no one's around, usually. But I would say this book was a little different. I worked with my daughter, Lucia, and that's what was such a great experience for me. She is 15 years old. She was 14 when we wrote it. She is sort of really between being a teenager, but still, I catch her, she still plays with her sisters. And so she understood a lot of kid things and caught things that I wouldn't have caught. So it was a really great experience. She should be a marketer. I learned a lot about her doing this book with her. So.
I love it. Okay, where do your best ideas come from?
In the shower.
Mine too, yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, or when I'm walking down airport terminals.
I get that too.
When you're moving.
Yeah.
Feet moving are a good thing. An author once told me when you're moving the soles, the other one works too.
Oh, that's right.
And
that's
it's true. You're moving.
Yeah.
If you could pick a writing mentor, alive or dead, whom would it be?
I think Raymond Arroyo.
Oh, my.
I mean, you've been very good to me. I mean, I've bounced a lot of ideas off of you. I think you're brutally honest, which is good.
See, some people like honesty. I hope all my critics are watching.
But yeah, I've bounced a lot of stuff off of you, and I think my book is better for having done that.
Yeah, well, sometimes I think it's easy. It's always easier to see problems in someone else's story.
It's true.
You cannot see them in your own.
No.
And I keep after I write, I leave a lot of distance. I put it in the drawer for 3 weeks and I won't look at it because you're too close and you know the blood that went into every sentence.
Yeah.
So when you have the distance, it gives you a different perspective. But it's hard.
Yeah,
but
it is
thank
hard.
you. That's very nice. Advice to parents to get your children to read.
They should see you reading. And it's interesting. I do a lot of reading on my phone. I literally read for work, like articles and stuff. And it's just not the same. I mean, they need to see you sitting down actually reading a book, which, by the way, is hard these days. We're all so distracted. There's so much going on. But that's a good thing.
Critical. It's time spent. They're bonding with you in a way that you'll never replicate. Because as you said about Nancy Drew, you can share your history, your values, your perspective on life. They're absorbing that without knowing it because they're lost in the story.
Absolutely.
Such a great gift.
I once interviewed Megan Cox-Gurdon about her book, The Enchanted Hour.
Great book.
And it's a great book, and it reminded me of why I actually started reading more after reading to the kids more after reading that. Because it's all intuitive what she's telling you is happening, but you almost have to see the scientific data behind how important it is to do that. And and at different phases, like even with my daughter, I'm not a Harry Potter person, but my oldest daughter loves Harry Potter and now reads to her siblings Harry Potter. So there's a lot of interesting things that happen in a family, introducing what you value.
Yeah, your likes and dislikes. And I read something great this week from an educator who said, give your child the freedom to dislike books. Certain books to say I don't want to read that.
Why?
Well, so that now they're in the active participation of deciding I like this. I don't like trucks. I don't want to read about fire engines. I want to read about oceans and mammals.
So
you let them choose.
I get that at the young phase. I'm guilty of when
imposing.
Yeah, because I'm like, why don't you pick up Treasure Island? Why don't you read Pollyanna? And there's so many other things coming out. And I mean, children's literature is actually very vibrant right now. There's a lot of stuff out there.
It's a bad idea. I always tell parents this. And look, no one loves the classics, Shakespeare, Moliere, more than me. However, I think there's a real problem we have in our educational system of imposing that on kids before they're ready for it.
That's
and
true.
I think you should take them to the theater to watch it rather than making them read it. That's what I did with my kids. They got Shakespeare.
Smart.
We went to see it, or we pulled up the BBC versions. We watched together and worked our way through the language. It's the only way to feel it, because otherwise the language it's all too foreign. There's so many foreign concepts.
when the parent is the actor as well.
That is true. And when you got two in the household, then you really got something. Yes, it's big.
You know that you learn something every day. That's actually very good advice.
It's good. Well, it was meant to be. It was meant to be performed, not to read.
Totally.
And so when you read it later, you'll get it, and all the pictures come back. If you could write anything else, what would it be? And you've written parenting books. You've written children's books. Do you want to do another one of these?
I do. I really love
Picture
the process.
books?
Do you know why I like picture books? Because
No.
I love the creative process. I actually do. I love working with the artists, and I like the idea of having an input on that. And I did have a visual of what I wanted, and I was really lucky to find Richard Johnson, who I think really captured what I wanted. So I do. I love the creative process.
That collaborative process.
Yeah. Also, it's not as long as the process you put yourself through.
This is true. 330 pages is a lot longer.
It's a lot of work.
But you know what? That collaborative process is there as well. With maps and illustrations and the covers.
Yes.
Oh, the covers.
The covers.
And like you, I've been blessed with great illustrators. Thank you for this.
Thank you, Raymond. It's always fun to come on your show.
It's great.
Thank you.
See you soon.
All right.
Paloma Wants to Be Lady Freedom by Rachel Campos-Duffy is available at bookstores everywhere and online.